Hey everyone, this is a Work Items Performance API working group. Today is March 18. So yeah, let's start with the updates. I've verbalized for Eugenia who can join. She's still working on the N+1s from the linked items widget, and she needed to change the approach for a technical reason. But yeah, still needs to try a different solution this week. And yeah, Alexandru, you have a next update.
Yeah, so from our last discussion, I was encountering this huge overhead from GraphQL versus what I was seeing from the database. I paired with Heinrich. We didn't see anything that could be improved right away, but then like afterwards, I realized that the enabled method for the bullet doesn't actually disable it. It just changes some on the level of the logging, because like I disabled bullet by disabling the enabled method, and then I realized that's not the one that's doing it. So just disabling the bullet locally got the query to execute from 10 plus seconds to around 1.5 seconds. That's definitely a huge improvement, but it's still, I think there is still room to improve it, even from 1.5 seconds, if you consider that the Postgres part, the database part is taking pretty much always under 50 milliseconds locally. So there should be no reason to have a 30x. I think a 10x should be achievable, I would say, but I didn't get to spend much more time on that afterwards. So I don't know if we can achieve it or not. But like from a very high level perspective, that does sound reasonable to me. So maybe I'll get to spend a bit more time again into trying to see if I can get it down from 1.5 to a bit lower.
Do you have any guess where we spent the most of the time?
Yeah, the time was spent after fetching the data from the database, right? So not like parsing the query itself didn't seem to take that much time. It was like all of this, so it was mostly happening afterwards, like fetching the data and then trying to render that whole tree. And I guess that's where Bullet kind of kicked in as well, and it was trying to do some logging, tracking, and all that. So it was adding more overhead to whatever's already there. So.
Okay, then my suggestion to try precompiled queries doesn't help with anything.
I think everything helps. I don't know though how much, right? Like that.
Yeah,
that's something
if it's like
that
below 100 milliseconds for 1.5 seconds, it's not the thing that we are looking at. Yeah.
Yeah, I can try it out and see if that, like, how much that shaves off of that 1.5 seconds. Again, that's what that 1.5 seconds is not like set in stone. It's sometimes 1.3, sometimes it's 2 seconds. It's like it varies. It's hard to measure. Sorry, Heinrich.
Yeah, regarding parsing, we also log this right now in our GraphQL logs. So we have some data here to see how much we could save. Yeah, last time I checked, it was a pretty small number because I was looking at, because we had random like validation timeouts, right, during these parsing, and like some people were encountering that. So I saw that there were like very small numbers, but then it just happens. I don't know, like some GC happens or whatever, right? It goes over the timeout, but yeah, I just wanted to add also another thing regarding the profiling you're doing. Like sometimes it's also tricky to do profiles on the local environment, especially running Rails and in development could behave differently. So it might be worthwhile testing in like staging or something. I don't know, just a suggestion.
Yeah, so like for validation where we are tracking it, we have a timeout of 0.2 seconds, so around 200 milliseconds. So I guess if parsing would not fit within those 0.2 seconds, it'll fail somehow. So yeah, I don't know how much we can gain from just caching. I mean, we will gain, but we are not yet at that point of saving like, I don't know, 50 more milliseconds or something like that, right?
Maybe a stupid question, but what is bullet?
It's a gem to track n+1s. It's a development gem that we enable it on development to track n+1s. It will highlight that if you have some of them.
Do you want to try this idea that Heinrich just suggested of profiling on staging or some other environment?
I can take a look at it. Again, I don't anything specific that I would want to look into. Just check the timings on staging.
Yeah,
or
it's
what?
more like my question is about like, is the difference in query time versus response time only visible in dev or also in production M? So just so we, rule out any development thing.
Yeah, I guess I can run some flame graphs on staging as well, right? Like against staging. The problem though is that locally I can tweak my query. I guess I can tweak the query for staging as well. Yeah, I probably can do that. I probably can do that. Because I was like eliminating all of those widgets that create n+1s and some of the permissions. So probably I can customize the query just so that it fits whatever I'm doing locally. Yeah, I'll give it a try. I'll take a look.
Should I go? So yesterday I paired with Matt on the non-members issue. It's kind of hard to test it locally. Locally, we don't see the performance error as big of a difference as we see in production. In production, it's very explicit. Good idea, Henrik, to test in staging as well. I'll try to say that. But also, Matt found something later, and Nicholas just mentioned that we had a similar optimization already done somewhere else. So I'll try that today to apply that optimization on this query there and see if we can find something.
I want to quickly mention something, if that's okay. We recently merged NMR to fix some of the permission problems for advanced search in relation to epics. But I think we also improved the performance quite a bit. So we use a tree structure for group level searches, and I can share the MR. Maybe we can pull some of the changes from that MR and make this optimization more generic, let's say. So I will post it here. Sorry, that's the wrong MR. This one. So we're using some unique things to make group level searches performant, because sometimes we have too many epics, too many groups. The hierarchy is so large. So usually we use a tree structure. So we build permission tree essentially and optimize it as much as possible. So if you have maybe access to GitLab org 9 and 70, you don't really need any other permissions down the line. You know that you have access to everything. So you can just shortcut all the permission checks and make it much more efficient. Just wanted to mention it here.
Yeah,
That
that's
sounds
basically
interesting.
similar to the optimization we did for epics, which traverses the tree and kind of like shortcuts the children if some condition is met. So I think it's good to like look into that and generalize this solution into something reusable.
We'll also attach the tree structure we're using here, because I'm not sure if we're using that for epics or anywhere else apart from advanced search. We have an in-progress MR for some, I think, pages settings. So I'd recommend using this tree structure there, and it made it much more efficient. So instead of n+1, it's one query.
This is not something to answer here, but just like as an idea, because this feels to me very similar to our project authorizations just done at the group level. Obviously, the implementation will be different because we need to care now about a tree of nodes rather than a flat list of projects. But do you think it makes sense? Because what I understand is we will compute this authorization tree basically every time we want to search something, right? So we would first compute whatever the tree for authorizing these groups should look like. If I have the top level group that I only need that part and so on, but we would do it every time you want to search it. So instead of doing that, maybe we can, I don't think it changes all that often. So maybe it makes sense to also cache it. So you don't have to compute it every time you want to filter or search, but you do it once and then you update it whenever the membership or the permissions change as well. So it's kind of more of a longer term caching rather than caching right before you want to do it. Because I would assume it does get expensive in some scenarios as well to compute this tree.
So most of the time we compute it for a specific user. So it's not the entire hierarchy we're computing that, but maybe you have access to several subgroups in a namespace. So we calculate this tree for this specific user. So we don't have to traverse the entire namespace tree, the entire hierarchy. So we kind of flipped the checks, if that makes sense, and made it much more performant.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is like, does it make sense to kind of have this cached already for the user, right? Because we kind of know this user is part of these groups, so you can have it pre-computed basically for that user, and whenever that user is removed or added to a different group, you can always kind of recompute it, have it there, and whenever you need to do a search, you just fetch it without having to compute it every time, right? So it kind of feels natural, but I don't know if there is anything to be aware of or scared or yeah.
Well, maybe that could be an optimization for later time, but I think we haven't encountered any issues with loading user kind of permissions. I think it was extremely efficient compared to traversing the entire namespace hierarchy, let's say. So maybe if we see that this becomes a problem, we can cache it, but we probably shouldn't cache it unnecessarily, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good.
Would that solve the permissions problem we discussed in the very beginning? Like for everything. And Dmitry, how long does it take to build that tree? Is it like 50, 100 milliseconds?
I think less than 100 milliseconds, but I haven't checked it recently. We can double check maybe after we merge this MR. We can even get some maybe even production numbers.
I think it will help, but it will not completely solve it. Because like if we take the scenario where we compute it and we figure out that this user has access into like 100 different groups, right? And you need to query anyway, then the queries do become slow anyway because they need to load all the issues for all these 100 namespaces, sort them in a specific order, and only then pull the top 100 or top 1,000, whatever. So that's one part of the optimization that is probably going to help quite a bit, I would assume, but it's not the full picture, right? So we still need to figure out how do we make the query fast enough in those particular scenarios.
Yeah, I think it doesn't really solve the query problem unless you're sending a huge, maybe group ID list. So if you try to send thousands of group IDs to filter documents, it also becomes really slow. We've encountered that with non-group based document types. So if you just call, I don't know, .all projects on a namespace and send this entire list, it's really inefficient. So that's why we started switching to group-based filtering. So we are trying to filter it by group first, and then projects only if necessary. Maybe you have access to some specific projects across the entire group. So we have traverse IDs, prefix, and some additional authorized projects on top of that. I think it should be still pretty efficient. And I would imagine that for most customers, it's not hundreds of namespaces they have access to. It's maybe several namespaces. So I think that's what makes it much more efficient.
Yeah, but the way I understand it, we can't really search issues at the moment or work items for projects just by the group ID. Like we don't have the traversal ID or anything like this, right? So right now for work items, it still will be the project list in the end. Or am I wrong?
I think right now, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that right now we're searching work items, I think using traversal IDs. If you select a project, then we filter it by project ID. But if it's a group search, I think we mostly rely on prefix and traversal IDs.
Like even for projects, we can use traversal IDs because a project has a namespace record, which then in turn has the traversal IDs column as well. So I don't think it makes a difference just because projects are always a leaf node. So like there is no much use basically in having that project ID within the traversal ID list because it's always going to be the last one. So yeah, I don't know if that helps. Maybe there is some other tweak there where we can still get some performance out of that, but otherwise it feels like sending the traversal IDs after this project ID or just using the project ID is kind of the same thing because it's always the last node in the list.
Yeah, I for some reason thought that we don't have it at all for work items. So great to hear that we do. Then kind of final question for me. Does anyone wants to take it as a to-do to look into this MR and see how we can adopt it for work items?
I'd love to take a look, but I don't think I'll have capacity to do it this week because I do have to work on some other stuff as well. But like I can put it on my to-do list. I don't know. Like, do I need to commit to it being like an investigation that I do by XYZ? Like, I'd like to know how can I, like, what kind of priority I need to give it, and then how I structure my other work on top of this, or this within the other work that I need to do.
I mean, sorry, Nicholas, you wanted to say something?
For me, it's the same answer as Alexandro, but Cassio and Matt, you're actually looking into this, right? So you can first try to fix it we already have, and then also look into this.
That was my idea. Yeah, I'll try to fix with what we have, and since it's similar, I'll take a look as well. But I wouldn't like to make a commitment on really going deep on that because I have other stuff as well. It's actually the same answer.
So maybe we'll leave this to as a next point to our next meeting. Like no one has to take it on, but then by the next meeting we'll also know a little bit more about our workload and who's doing what. Because like again, if I'll try to test that on staging and whatnot, that'll take me some time. That's one point that I can bring up to the next meeting. Then if I'm done with that, I can probably pick up this one as the next item that I can look into if someone else's didn't try it or someone or something like that. So what do you think about that? Like maybe we postpone it 1 week. Unless we have capacity to someone to pick it up. It doesn't seem like that. I think Eugenia has something on her plate and Alyssa has something as well on her plate. So yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's postpone it to the next one. My only ask, Dmitry, can you open a like placeholder issue for it and ping me on it? Just, I don't know, reference MR. I'll put it somewhere in the plan so we don't lose the idea.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks. Heinrich, you have a next point.
Yeah, so I continued looking at the queries and I was like, we had an issue for the banned users thing, so I looked into that and I posted there, I tried using a CTE to force it to evaluate the banned users last, because my initial assumption was Postgres was trying to do the wrong thing, right? But yeah, with the CTE, it was fast, but I realized that I didn't put the order clause at the outer query. Nicholas, you have a question around it. And I found out about it because the specs failed. And I read the docs, and it says that I saw some like forum posts that said like the order is preserved in the CTE, but it's not like, you know, you shouldn't rely on it being like that. Like it's like a side effect rather than like an intended behavior
Oh,
on
interesting.
Postgres.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to confirm, but that's what I remember seeing. And then the specs also said that it wasn't returned in order, right? So there must be something. Maybe in the newer version it's already not ordered or something. I don't know. But yeah, that was, so that didn't work. But also while investigating, I saw interesting data. Like for GitLab.com, we actually have over 1 million banned users. And that's part of the problem why like Postgres chooses a bad plan. It doesn't try to do it last because the banned users is also a big table. I saw a solution where the projects, I don't know who was doing the projects thing, where like a banned user's projects are deleted after 60 days. Is the new thing that someone else is working on, some other team is working on right now. So we could do a similar thing where after 60 days, we delete the user's issues, authored issues, and then we mark the banned user record as like, you know, issues deleted or something. So when we do the exists clause, we only include banned users where issues deleted equals false, right? So these are like the newly banned users. I don't know if it would help. It's just like a thought, theory at this point, but yeah, that's one possibility. And the other thing I tried that kind of works is like to add an index, a partial index with a like where work item type ID is in the like the default types. Then the banned users filter is also fast in that case because it uses the sorting already on that first work item type ID filter. So basically the problem I see is that we have these filters that aren't really filtering out that many issues, right? There's like, it adds a clause, but then doesn't filter out many rows. That's the banned users filter and also the work item type ID, because like most are issues, right? And we're just adding that clause, which, you know, Postgres has to work through, but then not filter out anything. Yeah, Alexander, you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to like, do you know if we are ever deleting these banned users? And like we have the banned users table where we would retain some of the maybe the metadata of this user, like the email that they use, so we don't allow them to be creating another user as a different, like, I don't know, username and stuff like that. But then like it kind of makes sense to delete the users records because then we don't have to join those users or things like that. I don't know. So like I want to try and cut down on the amount of the list because this is going to only grow, right? Like this is never going to be deleted because we want to retain this abuser users or whatever banned users list, but we should not have to always join with this table because this is going to become more and more of a problem on every level where we need to filter out method like data from banned users.
Yeah, so I haven't checked with the abuse team about their like how they use this banned users table, and if you know, if ever these ever get deleted or it's just gonna just grow. But yeah, like I said, one idea to make the table or like the list of IDs smaller when you filter out is to add another column, like an issues deleted something. But yeah, it adds extra overhead, I guess. But with an index, you can easily find the ones that you need to filter out. Maybe, I don't know, but
Yeah, I don't know if it will help because you still need to join on the banned users. So you kind of need to filter by those users anyway. I don't know. Like we need to look at a plan. But yeah. It
Yes.
will be like just nice to not have to join with that table as well. Like if you are removing banned user data every now and then, you don't even need to join on that. Like you'll slip in some of the bad issues, so to say, right? Periodically, but if you constantly clean it up, you don't even have to join that table because eventually you'll clean up that bad data anyway. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but there are like, yeah, some UX concerns, like, like a spammer like spams 30 issues and it shows up in your issue list. You don't want to wait 30 days until it, gets off your list. But yeah, the other approach I am looking into right now is like indexing the recurrent type IDs by the default list. Although I think I'm gonna try to figure out with Jack. I think Jack's working on the consolidated list, right? I'm not really sure around the plans on like, are requirements never gonna show up in the consolidated list, or around these types, so we know how to index our data. And like, do we need to filter by type, or because right now I think we exclude 2 types. I think it's requirement and test case, or one other type. And yeah, because they have their own like list page. And yeah, Nicholas has a question around.
Yeah, I was wondering, Dimitri, how does the search team work with the banned users data?
So I think we just don't index banned users data because you cannot really do joins in Elasticsearch. So we just don't have these documents in the first place.
But a user can be banned after they created the issue. So what do you do then?
I think we remove it. I will need to double check, but I'm pretty sure we just drop all the associated data.
Yeah, with Postgres indexes though, we can't like add a where clause there, like referencing another table, right? So that's why it's kind of tricky. We'd have to denormalize it into this table and like do that. So if we want to do this similar thing.
What happened with the idea of denormalizing it? Is it something?
It's still on the table, but then it's just, it takes more work. It's like riskier, right? It's you need to do the sync, invalidating the thing when the user's unbanned, and yeah.
And
Classic,
like denormalizing
caching
denormalizing usually means we will store the same data multiple times, which is we already have a problem of too large of a database. I don't know how much data that adds and how much performance we gain, but just as another perspective is like we try to add all of this retention stuff to remove data from the database, and denormalizing usually means basically increasing the data that we store.
I was wondering if we could do an optimization by denormalizing not on the issues table, but on the namespace table. So hear me out. So what if we have this data retention policy and after X hours, we delete issues from any banned user. And we know that these banned users created issues in these projects or groups. And we therefore, like, once they got deleted, we mark these projects again as safe, like not having any work items from banned users. And then we don't need to join it. And we only do this on a group top level namespace, maybe. Like the query performance suffers while there's an attack from banned users. Like that users we will ban, but once we banned them and deleted the content, we do not need to query anymore. The data from, like, we don't need to do the join anymore.
It's basically storing a has hidden issues boolean on the
top level
container
namespace.
or something, right there.
It's a denormalization only on the top level namespace instead of per issue. So this also could work with workers, right? Like you have a sidekick job. I mean, this is a bit too much, but like you go through all top level namespaces, check if there are banned users, and if it's not, you don't need to query it. But like you need to, yeah, it's a bit too much. But maybe denormalization not on issues table could help, because then you remove it depending on if there's currently data in it.
But this also depends on we want to delete the issue records, right? Because
Yes.
that's when you
Yes.
flip the has hidden issues back to
Yeah.
false. Yeah. So if that's something we want to do or not, maybe it's safe to do, right? It's all spam mostly, I guess, after X number of days.
Exactly. It's
If the
spam
user
and
didn't get unbanned.
And my thinking is the following. So, well, GitLab org would suffer for some time period until we delete the stuff. All the other groups that are private anyway and do not have banned users do not need to suffer anyway. And we could enable it for them immediately. We would have one timer migration where we go through all banned users and check which namespaces have banned users in there. And we need to keep this up to date, yes. Like which namespaces have issues of banned users in there. And then once we do this and keep this up to date, we can remove the query from all other namespaces except where it is. And then maybe we have the data retention.
It seems like I was wrong about our approach. We just store hidden field in work items.
Okay.
So that's our solution.
How do you keep it up to date?
I think just using the regular indexing pipeline. So if a user is marked as banned, I think we just go and update all the associated records, all the associated documents. It's kind of unique for Elasticsearch because it's very efficient to filter out these hidden work items.
Yeah, so that's basically similar to the original idea of denormalizing it at the prior work item level, right? Yeah.
So like, I think if we decide this is a good thing, then we can split it in two parts. First one is doing the denormalization, which I hope we can move it to the abuse team, right? They can add the column to the namespaces table. They can mark that namespace table when they detect an abuse user and so on. So like, because this doesn't relate as much to plan per se, it's more onto like, how do we detect banned users and when can we mark some of these containers as having or not having banned users data. Hopefully they can take it. I don't know, but I don't know if we can rely on that, because that's something that we use. So
it depends like how you want to implement it, right? You could like denormalize a has hidden items field, or you could make it specific, like has hidden issues, has hidden merge requests or something. So if they have spam merge requests, it doesn't affect the issues thing. But of course, it you have to store more fields. And I was also wondering, because you mentioned this, like we could even start right now with private groups, right? Are private groups like susceptible to these like ban user thing? Maybe they don't actually need this clause, right?
Likely not, yeah.
Well, I guess so. One other thing, but again, this is again something that probably abuse team should be concerned with, is like, what if someone overtakes someone else's account, pastes something? You don't really want to delete all of his data right away. You want to validate that user is really a bad actor and it's not something temporary and so on and so forth. So just deletion itself is probably something they'll have to deal with and not delete it right away, but that's a different question. And similar with the private groups, I guess. It's just like I would like us to focus on implementing this query where we know that a given namespace has or doesn't have hidden items, rather than implementing the whole infrastructure, so to say, right? The whole framework of how do you mark the namespaces when the user is reported, not reported, detected, and so on and so forth. But maybe we have to do it just to not be blocked by another team.
I have sort of an alternative solution. What if we ask the abuse team, instead of this implicit hiding all issues workflow, just add the like checkbox, or maybe a drop down, like delete all issues and MRs in the last X amount of time. So every time they ban someone, they actually kind of add this checkbox. So in that case, Alexander, what you said, if that's a legit account and it has a normal history, then we just delete whatever was done in the last day or two, and the rest we keep in the database. And then we don't have to have this neither denormalization on every level or SQL query, because there will be no data to filter.
But the only con here is that we depend on the abuse team doing the right thing, right? Like clicking it when they need to, because if they miss it, then the issues are left there visible, correct? Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, I assume they should be doing the right thing, right? And
yeah.
If they want, they will change it.
Unless they have some automation right now to auto ban when there are reports or something. I don't know the workflow they have right now, if they have something like that. Because there's the report abuse button, right? Maybe they have an auto ban after X number of reports or something. I don't know.
And you also need to hide the existing data. But I think our question, like how we move forward, is depending on if we are allowed to delete this data or not. And then if you're allowed to delete the data, the implementation will be based on the retention policy. Who can make this decision if we delete banned user data, or like banned user issues at least?
I can discuss it with product and pull in the anti-abuse team. I think we should definitely delete the data. Okay. We should be coming from the position that we want to do it. Let's discuss how we can do it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can also run some stats from database to just see how much data we're talking about as well in terms of issues and whatnot, right? Like there should be a count. I don't think it's that much, and I don't think the problem is really the data that we have, but rather this join on this huge table as well. So like deleting the data, like having a policy on deleting the data perhaps helps us not join the table as well. So that's probably the conclusion there.
I'll run the query while we talk. Then we can see at the end of the talk.
Yeah, I think for GitLab, we have like 75,000 open issues, and like I think when I created like 68,000 are like not banned, not hidden. So I think there's like around 7,000. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure in the numbers, but if I remember correctly, those were because our project is subject to a lot of like abuse, right? Before.
A random idea. What if we create maybe another table with a JSONB column and move this data to this other table? Then maybe it's partitioned by date or something, and we can just drop this archive automatically.
Which data? The issues from the banned users?
Yeah. So instead
why would we want to retain them?
Because if we're not sure that we
in
should
the
delete
meantime,
it.
before we validate that that's actually, yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, so basically when you unban, you copy it back, right?
Yep, exactly.
Only worry is that we then need to deal with all the foreign keys, right? Like the other implications of all the associations with that table.
That's true.
I mean, it could also be like a real table, not a JSONB column, like the real copy of a issues table, same columns and all that, like same foreign key constraints, so that they also cascade and delete to those tables. But yeah.
Well, it's a duplicate database now that you need the foreign keys to the tables that point to a different table now, right? Like the
Yeah.
assignees are now need to point to a different issues table.
I mean,
and so on and so forth.
there's the other way how we could do this is like, instead of the issues table, we make a materialized view out of it that this doesn't include the banned users. But I don't want to go this route.
Cool. Any more ideas on the banned users discussion? All right, I'll move to the next couple of sync items. So from Alisa, she'll be starting working on the proof of concept for Elasticsearch. Then there are no updates so far. And also, if she'll be becoming the DB maintainer, I mean, she's just started the how to call it, trainee maintainer issue. So if you have the database related query, MRs, send it her way. Yeah, it will give her experience and also the understanding of what we are working on. And Dmitry, you have a next point.
Sure. So just want to highlight this design document more. So I'm proposing to completely change how we handle finders so that we can use several backends, including Postgres, Elasticsearch. And I think even if you don't have advanced search enabled, it should still help, because in this design document, I propose to support offset limit pagination as well as key set and scroll API pagination. So I think just key set pagination might make it more efficient for finders. But the main goal is to support several backends at the same time. And maybe we can transparently migrate by adding support to several maybe options or parameters. And I hope that we can try something similar with Alisa. So for this proof of concept work, we might be able to introduce a finder that looks kind of similar to what I'm proposing. And the main problem with existing finders that they return active record scopes. And if we use advanced search, we cannot post filter the data. So I'm proposing to do all filtering in the finder itself. So that completely changes how we handle finders across GitLab. But I think it can open a lot of really good possibilities to optimize many different use cases, not only work items. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking there are like some use cases where we chain some finders into some other, as a subquery into this some other thing, or like add a clause, so those don't work anymore, right? So yeah.
So we kind of need to get a buy-in from the engineering, but I hope we can achieve that, because the benefits, I think, outweigh this one thing that we return scopes. And I hope we can introduce page token, so it will be a consistent pagination approach, independent on the of the backend you're using. So it will be just one parameter to get next page, maybe even previous page for key set pagination. So we might be able to stop using offset-based pagination completely, because I think that's really inefficient when you go deeper, maybe, I don't know, 20th page or something.
Yeah, I'd also like to add, like, this was also discussed during the tech summit thing related to data retention, because finders with multiple backends was one solution to, like, storing some data to the object storage, which is much cheaper than the database if you want like a cold storage for like very old data. So could be extended to do that in the future.
Heinrich, is there any work happening around that?
No, I don't think so. It's more of like just a discussion.
Okay. Do you know who was kind of suggesting this whole thing?
I don't know. I think Shekhar was involved, and the data
So,
retention team, like Fabio, I think.
I think generally it's a great idea to have these finders that can have multiple backends. The problem is, at least from plan stage, so to say, I don't know how much capacity we have to work on that. I think we have already a lot of technical debt between issues code base and work item code base. If we start adding this, that is going to be very, very hard to go further, like to improve even further and so on. Like I'd love this to be something that we do. I just don't know how much, and I think like plan is probably one of the bigger benefiters of this thing as well. It's just like I don't think we have capacity to really take it on and do it, but I don't know, maybe someone thinks otherwise.
I think even one step in that direction is using this as a wrapper. So we still have the legacy finder under the hood, but we restrict that it's no longer an active record scope that we return. I think even that can help because we can then incrementally add advanced search support on top of that. Maybe only some subset of the parameters will use advanced search, but it will allow us to go in that direction. Right now, it's not really possible. So I'm hope that we can enforce this, that we no longer return scopes with these advanced finders. And if we just use advanced finders everywhere, that's already really good.
Yeah, no, I think it's like I said, it's a good idea. I think that is worth pursuing. It's just like, and Vlad is here, he's participating in a lot of this meeting. I think like for next, like up until Q3, we're so packed. I don't think we can take on any of this stuff. And afterwards, I don't know if that means that after Q3, we can actually now pull in some of this stuff as well. It's just like right now, at least that's my feeling as an engineering plan stage, is like we don't have a lot of breathing room. Even this work group is kind of already done just so that it can support some of this tiered items. But yeah, I don't know. Like I would love to see this done. It's just I don't know how much time we can allocate to really do it.
I think if there's a benefit to do this, then we should do it. Like there's no question if it should be done, if it's beneficial to us and improves us. We have like a 60-40 ratio of what we should do. There are technical roadmaps. As Sabrina also said, engineering should push for this stuff. So yes, so we should just do this. Like even this working group is a good example. This was never accounted for anywhere. We just do it because actually we need it. And we have many of these things.
And I think we could also find a way to like, make the scope a bit smaller. Like we don't have to like not return active record relation everywhere, right? We could start with like the group dot work items field in GraphQL that uses an advanced finder. The project dot work items field also uses advanced finder. Everywhere else use the legacy finder for now, right? And yeah, just focus on that single use case of searching, listing items under a project or group. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree, to be honest, with Alexandru in general, that we are very much over capacity as a whole of plan, and it will be kind of hard to schedule. But a lot of our technical debt is around this performance and reliability issues. So yeah, maybe we can use it as a step towards resolving this as well. And I kind of like what Heinrich just proposed. Yeah, maybe we can start now with this Elasticsearch proposal that Alice is working on, and then start introducing these wrappers here and there. So yeah.
Yeah, one thing I want to add is like, again, I'm not it may feel like I'm against it or pushing it off sort of thing. It's like I don't want to end up with yet another backend among all other ones that we have. Like, I understand the idea of gradually introducing it, like in some endpoints and using it, and that's probably what is going to happen anyway. It's just like Dimitri also said, we need the buy-in of all engineering, because if we want to do it, we need to put in some Rubocops rules in place, some stuff in place where we actually don't have it being used in just in some places. So then we have it again, like this kind of technical depth where someone is using this finder, someone else is using this other finder. So it's all like an even bigger mess as we introduce new stuff. But yeah, like we can see what we can do to start introducing it, but we probably need a bigger buy-in as well. I think from plan stage we are all on board in doing that, just don't know about capacity and not how we can start. And yeah, we should be very careful about introducing yet another backend to do stuff and make things even more complex and complicated to maintain.
I think that might be a good opportunity to collaborate between global search and plan, because that's kind of our goal as well, even though that work items and merge request lists aren't our feature, but we've been receiving a ton of feedback that it doesn't work properly, timeouts, and every time we had to say that this is not our feature, but this is really confusing to team members and customers. So we really want to solve this problem.
Is there any way how we could evaluate the performance difference, for example, from two queries and see like where it makes the most sense to use the Elasticsearch backend?
I think you can maybe perform some searches right now on GitLab.com. Maybe select GitLab org. So group level search and GitLab or GitLab as project, and compare the performance maybe in the performance bar. I think that could be a good comparison, because I think most of the time or really frequently it times out in the issue list and merge request list, but it's maybe several hundred milliseconds on the advanced search side. So the performance difference is insane. So it could be a massive improvement.
Yeah, that's probably where that gem, Nicholas, that you kept advertising, where you can run the two code paths at the same time, would be very useful in comparing that, right? I don't remember how it's called though, but
Scientist.
Yeah, scientist. So then you can, yeah, with this abstract basically finder, you can run both at the same time, compare and gather some statistics, and then default to just one.
Cool. Yeah, I think let's see what the outcome of this first Elasticsearch POC will be, and it will take us a couple weeks. We're kind of over time, so I wanted to quickly run over the action items. So we decided to postpone this discussion on the using the tree optimization, and we'll need to bring it up with product and abuse team about the banned users. Anything I forgot?
No, not that you forgot, but while we were talking here, I checked again the city queries that you were doing, Enrique, and I thought the city you were doing was by joining the issues and the banned users, but actually we're joining the issues and the work items. And I tried another approach of the city, joining the issues and the banned users, and it seems to bring a little bit of improvement in there. So I just want to share that I tried that, and maybe you can use that somehow in your efforts in there.
So just to, can you reiterate, like you found a new approach with the CTE? Who do you want to look into it, Alexandru, or? You muted.
Sorry. I just want to share that I did that. I tried another approach of the city with Henrik because he was doing this work, and maybe this new city that I tried with the indexes that you are planning to introduce with work items types can be a better improvement than just the city with the band users. Not sure. Yeah, just trying new stuff here.
Yeah, I'll look into it. But yeah, I think my initial findings was like, if I remove either one of these filters, the work item type or band user, then it's fast. So I'm just trying to find a way to eliminate one filter by, you know, adding it to an index or something. Like work item type is easier to add to an index because the column is in the you know, on the table, right? So
yeah, that's
so,
my
yeah.
point actually. Like maybe you add the index and use the city with the band users, and maybe the two things together combined can be a better improvement.
Yeah.
Cool. Quick poll. How do you guys all find the discussions? Like, is it valuable? Is it too long? Or
Right amount,
Yeah.
right time for me.
I think it's valuable. I don't know as we move forward. Like, I think next week is still fine. But I kind of find it hard to find time to work a lot on this stuff. I think I'll be fine this week. I don't know about the next one. Like I keep getting a lot of reviews, and I keep I keep postponing the stuff that I really need to work on. Well, really, this is really need to work as well, but like some of my items that I need to work on. So for me, I think it's still fine for the next week. I can reevaluate for after that and, as well and let you know. By the way, I think about this advanced finders, we can add it as a postponed item as well. I don't know when to postpone, but just like for you, Vlad, to put it there somewhere on a shelf and bring it up in like a couple of weeks. Well, potentially after the Elasticsearch thing as well.
okay, I'll do that. Yeah, my concern here is that we spend an hour of a lot of talented engineers. So if at any time you guys feel like maybe we should discuss something async or anything, let me know. Otherwise, thank you all. I think it's a super great discussions, and yeah, let's focus on these couple follow-ups and see what we can get out of them. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
See you up.